Hey everyone. I hope you've had a good conference. Wish I could be there in person. So I'm going to be talking today about a content management system that we've been working on in our lab, and about a methodology called Agile that we find useful in our collaborative research. I'll start by acknowledging that the work that I'm describing takes place on the ancestral, unceded, and traditional territories of the Hunkaminam-speaking Musqueam people, and some of the research that we do is with them as well. I'll talk a bit about what CEDAR is, just to give you an introduction to CEDAR and the kind of research we do, and how we came to build a content management system, and some of the methodologies that we've found useful in terms of creating the system and also implementing data management with it. So I'm Daisy Rosenblum. I know some of you, and I'm an assistant professor at UBC in Indigenous Studies and Anthropology. I'm a linguist and do a lot of support for language reclamation and language revitalization. Dante Cerron is the lab supervisor at CEDAR and a game designer and developer, full stack developer, and we're really lucky to work with him. So CEDAR Space at UBC was co-founded and co-directed for several years with David Gaertner. So we applied for a grant together from the federal government for infrastructure, for research infrastructure, and that grant is what has allowed us to renovate the space that CEDAR's in, and purchase equipment. Our focus is prototyping tools and technologies that support language and culture continuity, and designing research that is community-led and responsive to community needs. So we were able to renovate this space. Actually, there's some further renovations happening right now. So we are at CEDAR, we think in terms of prototyping examples of tools and technologies that communities ask us for, and we think of these as relational technologies, meaning that they are intended to connect us more to each other, more to where we are, and that they're embodied, they're situated, they can support community building, and they're responding to and resisting a sort of corporate black box approach. So we have multiple research projects happening at CEDAR. We do things like natural language processing for low resource languages like Kwakwala, OCR, speech recognition, machine learning methods, as well as building mobile apps. You can see a couple examples of our locative audio app, which is linking audio to specific locations and provides access to it only when people are physically in those places. So we're developing these things which have multiple possible uses, and they have multiple needs in terms of data storage and management. So we are not an archive. We do not want to be an archive. We need to be able to manage data when we're using it actively, when we're making something with it, and when the team is working with it. It needs to be accessible remotely, but also secure. And we need to be able to manage data differently for different projects and for different user groups. And possibly also we needed to be able to set and adapt those parameters according to different community protocols, but also be able to change them. We reviewed different options for existing content management systems, things like MOOC2 and Omeka, collective access, but they either didn't have the kinds of function that we needed, or they would be costly to customize. So we ended up deciding to build something in-house using a Drupal backend and React interface. I'll come back to creating something that is compliant with OCAP, CARE, and FAIR, and some of the challenges related to that. At Cedar, our approach to research is applies an Agile methodology, and that refers to an approach that's borrowed from industry, in contrast with waterfall development. And basically it just means that there are regular meetings, there's a cadence of regular meetings, there's an iterative sharing of work in progress, there's a pretty quick design build cycle and quick feedback, allowing things to change and adapt according to that feedback. And it turns out that cyclical structure of development allows for continuous consultation, which is very compatible with collaborative research and with community engaged research. One of the examples that we experienced was on a project with Hunkaminam and language and with Musqueam. Halfway through the project, it became clear to our Musqueam partner that we actually needed to pause the project and review the data protocols with council. So we were able to do that because we had been meeting continuously, and so we didn't get as far as creating a complete product or project, and finding out at the end that it was something that we weren't going to be able to complete or use. Every project starts with a collaboration agreement, and that's a place to specify the project scope, identify the team members, the roles and expectations, and crucially, the data management requirements for the project, different kinds of data, what kinds of formats, and what the protocols are around managing that data, and who has the authority to make decisions in relation to it. We store data locally, or at least we will, that's the plan. So we have a local server, and once the content management system is up and running, all of the digital files will be stored on our local server. The Drupal backend has this structure that will be familiar to many of you. We've got file groups or bundles within projects. We actually have a sub-project layer as well. All of the content, the actual digital files, are stored in Drupal, and then the React front end provides access to the metadata and allows people to make changes in the metadata, to add content, and even for certain users to delete content as well. This diagram shows kind of the total picture of a data lifecycle at Cedar, from soup to nuts, from A to Z. And one of the key pieces is really the collaboration agreement, and starting with that collaboration agreement in order to determine what the protocols are around the data. This flowchart shows the kind of how a project gets created and how user access is determined. And this shows the Drupal kind of workspace structure, which allows you to have multiple user groups that are attached to different projects, and different kinds of users with different permissions. So we have many work-learn temporary research assistants who are students and work with us maybe for one term. They might have less access as in their team membership than a user admin or someone who's a long-term member of the team. The metadata is very similar to what you would find in any language archive metadata schema. So this is a demo that I'll show, which is basically it's the upload wizard, and it shows the process that the CMS takes you through when you want to add a new file. So you're selecting files here. You can select more than one. You're choosing what project you're in and identifying the content, selecting the content. And you're also prompted then to add it, to choose a bundle to add it to, or to create a new bundle. You can also create a project or a file group or bundle without new content if you wish. And you can batch upload files as well. The other thing is that once you've, as you're uploading, you're also prompted to select the metadata that you're going to be using or add new metadata. So it's quite user friendly. So the principles of OCAP, care, and fair are three sets of principles that have been created by different organizations and promoted by different organizations in relation to data management and data stewardship. So OCAP and care are both intended to ensure ethical data management and respectful management in relation to Indigenous cultural protocols in the case of OCAP, or just community needs in the case of care. So OCAP stands for ownership, control, access, and possession. CARE stands for collective benefit, authority to control, responsibility, and ethics. And those principles are a kind of guideline that we can think in terms of managing our data in order to align with those principles. At the same time, there are the FAIR principles that data should be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And in some cases, those two, the FAIR principles are in conflict with the governance, the ownership, control, and ethics related to, especially to Indigenous recordings of language or cultural events. So we do prioritize OCAP and CARE when we're trying to align the CMS and in terms of the structure of the CMS. Although as much as possible, we also want to make sure that when it is permissible in relation to a project, that data is also FAIR compliant. And we thought through some of these questions and explored where those conflicts arose in the different aspects of the system. Ultimately, our goal is for the CMS to actually implement those principles as much as possible, and for the process that we use it with and the way that we conduct the research to also fulfill the principles of OCAP and CARE, and working in this agile way where we're meeting frequently with the project partners, and having an iterative consultation process does create space for the process and the product to align with OCAP and CARE. We're going to be using this system first with the City Poems project and trialing it there, and then expanding it to our other projects. We're very grateful to all of our funders for the support that we've had. And here are some references. Thank you.